Hey parents, this past weekend we talked about the story of Jesus and the sinful woman. Jesus was at Simon's house eating a meal with him when out of nowhere, a sinful woman came in and started washing Jesus' feet with her tears. Simon saw this and he began to look down on the woman because of her sinfulness. When Jesus noticed that Simon was doing this, he told Simon a story about these two guys who had debts that were forgiven. One had a small debt and the other had a much more sizable debt, but still, they were both forgiven. The whole story ends up culminating with Jesus saying a very simple sentence: "He who is forgiven much, loves much." Simon needed Jesus every bit as much as the sinful woman. He needed forgiveness every bit as much as her. And our Bible verse this week said, "Everyone has sinned. No one measures up to God's glory." Simon and the sinful woman both needed to be forgiven because they were both separated from God due to their sin. We too were separated from God because of our sin, but Jesus made a way for each and every one of us to be forgiven. Before Jesus did what he did, we were all separated from God, and there's really no such thing as being more or less separated from God. It's just separated. And being separated from God is the worst. When we really understand what Jesus did for us, taking away that separation, it's impossible to look down on anyone just because there's sin in their life. Because we realize that we were every bit as separated from God as those people. We have all been forgiven so much, so we should love so much. Instead of looking down on others, we should look at others how Jesus looks at others and how he looks at us, with love and compassion. Not trying to compare your sin to their sin, not trying to make ourselves feel better because we're not as bad as someone else, but really seeing them how Jesus sees them, someone who he wants to be a part of his family. So I would encourage you to take time and talk about this as a family. Do you tend to look down at others just because they have sin in their life? Do you try to compare yourselves to others to make yourself feel better? If so, how can you remind yourself this week to look at others how Jesus looks at us? Remember, if it weren't for Jesus, we would all still be separated from God.